Hi there, I'm Brian Lepire with Salem Film Fest, and I'm speaking this morning with Najeeb Mirza and Randy Kelly, the director and cinematographer of BUZKASHI. BUZKASHI is a fabulous film about a unique sport in Afghanistan and the culture that surrounds it. So, Najeeb, Randy, thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I know you had a long drive from Ottawa, Canada, but I guess my first question is, where did the interest in the sport of BUZKASHI come from? How did you discover this story, and what propelled you to get it on film?
Thanks for the invitation. BUZKASHI is a sport that's played across Central Asia in 8 countries, including Russia, China, Afghanistan, Tajikistan. We shot in Tajikistan. It's a project that's been running over the years that took us 4 years to make this particular film. But I had come across, I've seen BUZKASHI before the international approach, which is 4 players aside. And when I was taken to a game in Tajikistan while I was there making a film, it was extraordinary because there they had 200 horses on the field rather than 4 or 5, and surrounded by, in the backdrop of snow-capped mountains. And it was it's visually very, very compelling to want to explore further. So.
Well, yeah, visually it is extremely compelling. And like you just said, the sport itself, capturing the sports shots, there's over 200 riders on horseback attempting to capture the prize. I can imagine, and yet throughout your film itself, in these massive shots and these massive scenes, you were able to, in my opinion, capture them beautifully. And I think that has a lot of credit to do with the work that you've done. Can you talk a little bit about how you went about capturing these shots, and just any difficulties and anything along those lines that you've encountered while working on such a massive scale?
Well, certainly it's a challenge to portray a sport that's played over a huge field, like 5 or 6 or 7 football fields wide between mountains. It's a beautiful location, but there's 200 players and they're going from one end to the other, and here we are, 2 guys with our cameras. We're not on horseback, we're just on tripods or monopods, and we're running around trying to get the players, recognize the players that we're following. So that was our main challenge, was will the people be able to see our players in this chaos of horses and dust and helmets and everything. So luckily some of our players had some nice bright jackets on. We tried to get them to put colors on their helmets, but that wasn't going to fly. One of the good things that came about is the technology of the GoPro cameras. Okay. That helped us also capture some of the action, because we could put those little cameras on anything. We could put it on the goalpost, we could put it on the goat, which wasn't very successful, but we tried it anyways. We put it on players' helmets, we put it on the horses facing the players, and so those cameras helped us capture the intimacy of that game, of the chaos. And so some of that comes through in the film, I think. One thing we would have liked more is to have a longer lens or a helicopter, but that wasn't going to happen.
Well, I think you were able to manage some amazing shots without those. But you mentioned it before. In the film itself, you follow 3 distinct characters, 3 distinct subjects who really tell this, not only the story about the sport itself, but the culture surrounding the sport, the culture in Central Asia, and the feelings of a change in society. How did you go about finding these 3 gentlemen? How did you encounter them, and what spoke to you about them as characters that you wanted to capture?
The process to find the characters was interesting, but that we went looking for the best players in the country who might have something to say. And so everyone we would meet, we would ask, who are the best players? And then we would go and interview each particular one and find out what their story was. And some were amazing players, but they had no story, and then others had really interesting stories. But the first one that we met was was Khurshid, the richer gentleman. And when we asked him who is the best player in the country, he said, "I am." Yeah. And so for us, that meant that that arrogance was already something that we needed to see more of. And because he was so incensed when we talked to other players before him, he just started fitting into our plan. And our second player was Askar. He and Khurshid have a great rivalry, and those two, that was very, very easily to see, and every time we'd meet them. And so we wanted to play off that rivalry. And then the third character, Azam, who ended up being our protagonist, was one who was located really far away from in the rural areas, in a small little village, which was very difficult to access and difficult to find him. But when we found him, he was such a charming and affable man that his story was just compelling enough, and he gave us total access to his family, which the other two didn't. He allowed us to shoot the kids and the women and so forth, and allowed us to stay with him, and that gave us a chance to have the access to tell a story that was deeper and not just a surface bit.
I think that all access really added layers and depth to the film itself. So this film to me seems like not only a massive project in production, but in post-production as well, when it comes to editing and pulling together and really finding the narrative that you want to tell. How long did you end up spending editing this film, and what were some lessons that you took away from that whole process?
I'll let Najeeb answer that. Well, I wasn't part of the editing process, but I was still keenly aware of what was going on in the editing suites with Najeeb and the editors. And I think, with all the trips we made, we had our three characters, we had a twist, we had a story to tell, we had some different layers there. Part of the challenge was going through all the footage. Certainly there was a language issue because Najeeb speaks Russian, and a little bit of the footage was in Russian, but a lot of it was in Tajik and Uzbek. And so having all that footage translated and noted was certainly a long logistical challenge. After that, piecing it, because it was shot over 2 years, piecing it so that it was sort of chronological, it made sense, and everything followed through, and people could follow, okay, we're back with this character, we're back with this character. It's an art form in itself, editing, and I think hats off to the editors because they did a good job of putting, and to Najeeb, they pulled off a story out of it,
Most definitely. Yeah. One of the characters in your film keeps insisting that he would like to see BUZKASHI make it as an Olympic sport. What do you guys think? Is it gonna make it in the 2016 Olympics?
Just to be clear, that BUZKASHI has already played in the U.S. It's played in California, in Orange County.
I didn't know.
And it's they're not using a real goat. They have for those who are sensitive to those things, they actually use an artificial goat, a burlap bag or something like that. The chance of it making it to the Olympics is very likely. I'm sure it's going to happen in 2016. Keep your eyes open for it. We're looking for members for the U.S. the U.S. BUZKASHI team and the Canadian team. So if you've got
going into training now. Well, my last question for you is this beautiful film that really captures an essence of the sport and a different culture. What do you hope Salem Film Fest audience take away from the products that you've brought here today?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we're really delighted by the nice community and response that we've had here in Salem. It's a great festival, and the kind which is like walking to a family, where people open their arms and invite you to their dinner table, which is a very different feel than other festivals. So first of all, we really appreciate being here. We were really delighted by the kinds of questions that came out of the Q&A after the film. Very thoughtful questions, and I think if there's anything that would like to leave people with is that the world is really big and we're all interconnected. And what may seem really foreign and far away is actually really familiar, because once you get past the differences that you see immediately, they are weekend warriors just like we have over here. They are family men and family oriented, and they have crazy ideas as well. I mean, there's just so many levels of our interconnectedness as humans, and I think what film allows us to do is to step into that world that is seemingly different to make it more familiar.
Well, Randy, Najeeb, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for coming to Salem Film Fest and showing your film, BUZKASHI. Come to Salem, see the world.